in the last 2 years was in order to help the peacekeeping process inside Africa. Let's say, Europeans or Asians are less and less eager to help Africa for peacekeeping. And so I think that Africans must organize themselves. And so to pass from United Nations to Africa Union responsibility, and also to help Africa Union to organize peacekeeping with training troops, common armaments, let's say deposits, barracks and so on, in a long period of time, let's say 10, 15 years, in order to prepare some sort of Africa strong peacekeeping, because you cannot accuse African Union to be inefficient if they have not the possibility to be efficient. This is the real drama. Of course, always under the authority of United Nations.
How can we make the African Union stronger, more efficient? Because some people say resources is the problem, but also member states who don't want to pay their fees and support the processes for peace.
I have an experience how difficult it is, the European Union. And so I cannot say that it's easy to make the African Union. You must start step by step. And starting with peacekeeping is a good start. But of course, you can reinforce African Union only if you have a general process that helps to have a common market, that helps to have common infrastructure. And, member states are always reluctant to jump into the Union. This must be done step by step, but it's necessary. You cannot have a renaissance or an African rise if you have 53 different states. This is life. This is life.
Let's draw on the experience of Europe, because you were once president of the European Commission. And when you look at integration in Europe and integration in Africa, what do we still need to do better?
Look, the process of integration, as I told you, is difficult. But my experience of looking at the history of 50 years of European Union is that you have big advantage on the economic side immediately. So you can start by that and build up step by step mutual advantage, economic of scale, a common policy, because otherwise you are absolutely lost. Clearly, in Africa you have another additional point, the peacekeeping problem, because when you have conflicts for at least 20 years, you have no growth, at least 20 years. So you have to combine both. But certainly you will always have reluctant member states. And in this case, you have also to accept regional agreement, partial agreements, in order to demonstrate that you can make progress.
The crisis in Europe at the moment, or the crisis of the euro, what are your views? Because you were Prime Minister of Italy when Italy qualified to enter the euro.
Well, in this moment is not the crisis of the euro, but is a terrible worldwide crisis and currency war. The IMF meeting in Washington was really bad. There was no agreement between Chinese and Americans, but also, developing countries like Brazil, they were in real difficulties because with the American policy, the national currency is growing, and this makes difficult to export. The European situation is similar because the euro now is 1.40 to the dollars, very, very high. And so if there is no agreement, there will be a terrible war. But it's not easy because if we go back to the former agreement, Bretton Woods or others. It was a different situation. There was one dominating country. Now is not anymore the case. And so we must push for a triangular agreement, European Union, United States and China. Otherwise, there is no hope to get out of the problem. The G20 meeting or the meeting with too many people, they don't arrive to any agreement.
But going forward, what do you think the world is going to look like? Because over 10 years ago, people were excited about the single currency. Now we've seen sovereign debt problems in Europe. We've seen the volatility of the euro. We've seen growth declining in Europe. We're seeing the rise of the emerging markets. It's a different world.
Oh, well, but imagine what could be Europe now in this financial crisis that was not born in Europe without the euro. We should have a competitive devaluation from Italy, from Spain, and it would be a complete disaster. And so, of course, now you say euro has a responsibility, but the deep thinkers, they say, okay, without euro, things could be much, much worse.
Finally, we're also here to talk about African leadership and making African leaders better, more visionary. From your experiences as Prime Minister in Italy, leading the Olive Branch Coalition, having to manage so many different forces in Italy, how did you build consensus?
Consensus means compromise. You know, to have some sort of long-range view. And in Africa, clearly, you must have growth. You know, this continent, you must change African growth from, let's say, Europe or American type growth to a Chinese type growth, you know. So we have this long-term common view, and then you must make compromise day by day among different states. This is why you need a place to discuss that. African Union or regional realities or agreements, but you need a continuous compromise. There is, you know, you can't think that one member state dominates over the others, and so, but I repeat, the idea in mind of African is must be African ownership and very high level of growth. These are the two necessities in order to change the continent.